Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University with a joint faculty appointment at Ross University School of Medicine. And it is on a somber note that I am doing this recording in remembrance of those that passed on September 11th, 2001. I wanted to take a brief moment of silence for those who gave their lives and those firefighters, those first responders, those who were there to help support and help all that. So, thinking about some of the health impacts, of course, from a public health / medical perspective, I think it's important to understand the long-term impacts of not only understanding 9/11, but also understanding traumatizing disasters that have that have affected the population and reshaped how we view reality almost. It's a way that we can better understand the long-term consequences. If you think about it from a health perspective, or from a trauma mental health perspective, this is similar to a impactful natural disaster. So if you're thinking about an earthquake that's near a fault line that may be disproportionately affecting marginalized populations, or if you're thinking about hurricanes around August and the Atlantic, hurricane season is in full swing, and then cyclones, of course, within the Indian Ocean that are similar to hurricanes but named differently. And then, of course, you have the rare occurrence of an earthquake that takes place under an ocean, which then leads to a massive tsunami, which unfortunately a number of years ago killed millions of people. So remembering those that gave their lives for 9/11 and understanding and feeling for those that have lost their lives from various natural disasters. But specifically, we're focusing on 9/11. I wanted to go over the series of events that took place on September 11, and I remember myself being within college and just in shock, seeing I think it was the first time that I felt like I was completely safe in a place, and now there was a sense of vulnerability that wasn't there before, and that this could take place in other places. What happened was 2 airplanes attacked the Twin Towers, and these were massive airplanes, and there was another one that was stopped somewhere in the area of Pennsylvania. At the end, 2,977 were affected, were killed that day, and 19 hijackers who committed suicide after committing the murders. More than 25,000 individuals were injured. But the question is that how are these health effects still being, 21 years later, how are they still being felt to this day? And for that we need to turn to well, first of all, this memorial, and fire a lot of times represents remembrance. And I wanted to thank my colleagues at Ross University School of Medicine for putting together a vigil in remembrance of suicide, but also kind of remembering everything. And so these are very important aspects to understand as not only times which change history, but also the health consequences. So what are the long-term effects? The toll of 9/11 includes the continued impact of accumulated health effects. And I wanted to emphasize and point that out because this is a very specific sort of concept and principle that you're thinking about when you're thinking about chronic diseases. It's unlike acute sort of conditions. For instance, myocardial infarction. There is no question that that is one incident. But when you're thinking about the effect, environmental health, the effect that you feel a lot of times is long-term. So the deaths that immediately occur are ascertained to the event. But what most people don't make the connection is that there are many long-term sort of consequences that a person must consider in order to really understand the effect of what took place. So among those who were directly exposed to either the air pollution or resuspended material that resulted from the collapse of the two World Trade Center towers, they felt this the most. And then, of course, definitely physical injuries, and we cannot downplay psychological trauma. So conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, physical problems, there is no question there were a multitude of physical problems that appeared. And one of those, respiratory and lung problems, which were most prevalent in highly persistent physical health problems arising from 9/11 exposure to dust clouds from the collapsing building. Sarcoidosis is a chronic inflammatory restrictive disease. Pulmonary fibrosis is in some ways similar with inflammatory effects. And then peripheral neuropathy is affecting the nerves within the peripheral system. So, bottom line, when we're thinking about 9/11, first thing is to remember those that gave their lives. But we have to also think about all of the long-term consequences, the individuals that pass away that day. They went with bravery and they went with honor. We also should be not only thinking about individuals that were exposed to 9/11, but also make sure that we're taking care of them and make sure that they are being screened for some of these specific conditions on a regular basis by their primary care physicians, or they're getting the proper care, because sometimes the treatment for these, the costs of treatment for these are prohibitive, and this was as a result of no fault of their own that they experienced this. And so that's why, as we're remembering today, let's also think about the people that were injured and all of the consequences that still affect us 21 years later to this day. Thank you for listening.